Many months ago, I watched this TV series on Netflix called Shadow and Bone, and it was very out of my comfort zone. It was fantasy. It just had this aesthetic that I didn't really consume. It wasn't a genre I usually consumed, and it was very YA. But even though this TV series was so out of my comfort zone, I just loved it. So I felt the need to read the books that inspired the series. So that's what I did. This journey started last year, right at the end of last year, like the last days of 2023, and it continued on through this year. So let's talk about and let's review the three books in the Shadow series. So the first book in this trilogy, it is a book that gives the title to the trilogy and to the TV series, and it is called Shadow and Bone. In case you don't know, this is a young adult fantasy series, so it has a world building that it is easy to understand. It has some magical elements, and the Shadow and Bone trilogy, I think this is the first series in the Grishaverse universe created by Lee Bardugo. The Grishaverse, it has this beautiful world building, in my opinion, where each country, it is very clearly inspired by a real country, and also each country they have a very specific aesthetic, a language, a culture, and because it is inspired in real life places, it is actually quite easy to understand. And one of the big differences from this world from our real world is that here we have the Grisha. They are these people that they have the power to summon stuff. So we have people that can summon fire, can summon wind, they can heal people, they can do a lot of stuff. They have like magical powers. They're almost wizards, except that the Grishaverse, the Grisha powers, they are considered the small science, so they don't exactly create stuff, they just pick things that are already in the nature and transform them. I think this is a concept that it is really interesting and actually also easy to understand. So here on this trilogy, the Shadow and Bone trilogy, we follow Alina. At the beginning of the book, I think she's around 17 and she's an orphan. She grew up in this house for orphans and she believes she's a normal person. As far as she's aware, she's no Grisha, she's just a normal orphan girl. And then she becomes a cartographer because she lives this book takes place in a country called Ravka, which is very much Tsarist Russian inspired, and Ravka was basically divided by the Unsi, or basically the Shadowfold, which is this area consumed by shadows. So there is no light, and it's very dangerous because besides being dark and you not really being able to see, there are these animals, these creatures that they basically eat the humans that try to cross the fold, so you need to be very careful about crossing it. And Ravka has been in the middle of a war for many years, war with their neighbors, some of them that doesn't really accept the Grisha, that try to kill the Grisha, also in war because you have this fold that they are trying to destruct or to conquer in some ways, so they can continue being a united country, because at the beginning of the book, this country is pretty much, it's quite literally split in half between the area behind the fold and the area that has access to the sea, and that basically the country is divided by this shadow fold. And Alina, our main character, she becomes a cartographer for the army, and she is meant to go into the shadow fold and help map out the shadow fold. And the same skiff that she is meant to cross the fold, it plays her best friend from childhood, a fellow orphan, and also just a regular soldier for the army. His name is Mao. And while they are crossing this fold, they are attacked by the Volcra, which is these animals that keep eating the humans. And Mao is attacked, and Alina tries to save them, and then it is revealed she is actually the sun summoner. So she can basically summon the light of the sun, which means she is the person that can defeat the fold, and she is the person that they have been looking for, searching for, because she is basically the only person that can actually destroy this giant shadow area that is quite literally dividing the country and killing a lot of people. And basically that's where the journey of this book starts. After being discovered as part of the Grisha, Alina is moved to the second army, which is basically an army that consists only of this Grisha, and she starts training, and yeah, she starts training so she can know how to handle her power, how to use her power, how to become powerful enough to destroy this world. So this book basically follows this journey of Alina from going from being an orphan and thinking she's a regular human to finding out that she has this awesome power and now she's considered a saint by her country. And there is this man called the Darkling. He's basically the anti-hero from the story, and he's the captain, the general of the Grisha. He commands the Grisha, and he takes her to the little palace, which is the place where the Grisha lives, and then she starts training with Bagra, who is this ancient Grisha and very wise. And this whole journey, the main journey of the book is this journey of Alina going from a regular girl to understanding how powerful she is. And throughout this journey, we have Alina meeting other people like her, meeting people that are not so nice, flirting a little bit with the Darkling. And I can talk much more about the plot, otherwise I will give you major spoilers. But overall, what did I think about this book? Well, if you watched the TV series, this first book in the series, it's pretty much the first season of the TV series, and I think Netflix did an amazing job at translating this book into the screen. I felt like I was watching the show in a great way. But overall, my opinions about this book, I actually really enjoyed it. I ended up giving a 4 stars, but this is pretty much a top tier 4 stars. I read it so fast, I couldn't put it down. I just wanted to see what will happen next, and I knew what would happen, right? Because I watched the TV series first, but still, I felt this book was very gripping, it was very engaging. One thing I'm going to say is that Alina, at times, she annoyed me because she's very naive. She's kind of like this lost puppy. You pet her and then she goes to you and she's like, yay, I love you, and she believes in the person. And that at times it is annoying, but if you think about it, it is understandable because after all, she is a 17-year-old that has been an orphan all her life. At least she only remembers being an orphan. She never really had a family besides her friend Mao. So it's kind of easy to understand why she would get attached to the other characters, to anyone that shows her a spark, a centimeter of affection. But also, at times, it is also difficult to believe she's that naive because, girl, you are in the army and you have been an orphan all your life, and people haven't necessarily been the nicest to you. At the same time, you understand why she can be this lost puppy that gets attached to anyone that shows her affection. It's also kind of difficult to 100% believe and grasp why she's so naive. That's it for Shadow and Bone. We have other 2 books in this series, so let's talk about them. We have the second book, it's called Siege and Storm, and the third book is Wind and Rising. So let's move on to the second book in this trilogy, Siege and Storm. Siege and Storm, it is indeed the longest book in this trilogy. it feels like it is the longest book in this trilogy, I'm not going to lie. I can't really talk much about the plot of this book without giving spoilers, but we have some drama happening at the end of Shadow and Bone, and then this book starts right after the what happens in Shadow and Bone. It picks up exactly at the same point, and then we go on this journey where Lina is just kind of shaken with the things that happened in the first book, but then she goes into this self-discovery journey to understand more of her powers, more of who she is, and more about the world in general, what is going on. And this book gave me mixed feelings. One of the reasons why it has been taking me so long to do this video is because I actually took a long time to finish this book. The beginning of the book is really fun. I really like it. It was action-packed in the right amount. And then we get to the middle of the book. And for me, I felt like at times it was such a slugfest because basically the main goal of this book, we reach it right at the beginning. So what will happen at the rest of the book, right? And the middle felt like such a slugfest where you are like, where I felt like, okay, let's move on because it so feels sometimes like such a slice of life, but not necessarily a slice of life that at the time I felt it made sense. Actually, I rarely actually annotate my books, and in this one I actually did. There is this section on page 196 if you're curious on the US copy. So there's a section where I basically annotated a whole paragraph with this quotation by me. The imposter syndrome mixed with the confidence that she can lead an army and save the world external monologue, it's getting tiring. So minor, very minor spoiler, but Alina, she offers herself to lead an army of Grisha, but she's still like this book, the section in the book, she's still pretty much new to her powers. She's still understanding what it's like to be Grisha, how to control her powers, but she offers herself to lead this army, but she doesn't have the mental strength to lead the army at this point in her life. She doesn't have the knowledge to do so, and she pretty much she keeps she seems to be in the seesaw where she at one moment she feels like, oh, I'm a saint, I'm super powerful. The moment I understand and I completely control my power, I will be unbeatable. But at the same time, she will then move to this area where she's like, but I'm just like an orphan girl, and I don't really understand really my power. And there's this imposter syndrome that she keeps seesawing at, and at the beginning of the book, it is annoying, and I felt like Alina was so annoying at the beginning of the book. But then we have the end of this book, and everything makes sense. Because basically in this book, we have so much character development from Alina. This book felt pretty much like a middle book. It had that fault of feeling like this is the book that is the second book in a trilogy. This book feels like it is basically building up to something, and at moments it was boring, but after when you finish this book, everything ties in together beautifully, and I really like that. But reading it, I thought it was boring. Even though in Siege and Storm we meet one of my favorite characters in the series so far, which is Nikolai, and he's the Prince of Raqqa. Reading it was so boring. I ended up giving it also 4 stars because this is not necessarily a 3-star book for me, but this is pretty much a lower tier 4 stars. But even though it took me a very long time to finish it because I didn't feel pulled or didn't feel like the desire that, oh, I need to find out what will happen next feeling that I have for Shadow and Bone. I didn't feel it with Siege and Storm. But I pushed through it and then I finished reading it. And at the end of the book, I was happy with it. So let's move on to the third and final book in this trilogy. We have Ruin and Rising. This book is so interesting, and again we pick up this book right after, not exactly right after, but very shortly after what happens at the end of Siege and Storm. Again, because it's the final book in a trilogy, I can't really talk much about the plot without giving you major spoilers about what will happen. But I really like this one. I felt about it the same way I felt with the first book in the trilogy, where I just wanted to figure out what would happen next, and I kept reading and reading, and I couldn't put it down whenever I picked it up. And overall, I gave it 4 stars, but this is definitely more of a top tier 4 stars for me. And one thing I really liked about this book is that you feel the character development of Alina in this book. Everything that happens in Siege and Storm makes so much sense. The imposter syndrome I felt really bothered by. It makes sense, and in the end I think it was needed because Alina grows so much. She was like a completely different character from the one you meet in Shadow and Bone. I don't know what else I can say without giving major spoilers again. I guess a lot of people seem to not really enjoy the ending. I personally actually really liked the ending of the book. I think it is a very well-rounded ending. It doesn't really leave much space for any more big problems to happen in this particular storyline, and I really liked it. So let's talk about the series as a whole. As I said at the beginning of the video, I decided to read the book after I watched the TV series, and while I really like the TV series, reading this book, I see that they basically join in the second season what happens in both Siege and Storm and Ruin and Rising, and if they made 3 seasons of Shadow and Bone and they separated exactly what happens in Siege and Storm and what happened in Ruin and Rising in 2 different seasons, and we had basically more episodes, maybe not even separate them in different seasons, but have more episodes, the pacing of the series would have been so much better, and it would have been so much, we could have explored more things of more of what happens in the series, which is kind of a shame because this series is actually really good. Also in the series we barely have anything about the apparat, and in his books the apparat he has a really big role at the things that happen and at moving the plot. I feel like we also don't have enough time to get to know Nikolai and understand his personality and all the other characters also that we get to know in these books. We don't have enough time with them on screen. Like Tolia and Tamar, there is something that they do that it is very important, and it changes the way Alina relates to people in the books, but in the series that basically doesn't happen. And don't get me wrong, I still really love the TV series, but I feel like it could have been better after I read these books. Because one thing to say about them is that I think, besides the fact that Season Storm was kind of slow for me, I think they are really well paced, really well plotted. Everything in them makes sense. As far as I remember correctly, everything makes sense. There is no plot hole. This is a series that I would definitely recommend to anyone that wants to get into fantasy, because I'm just getting into fantasy and I really enjoyed it. I understood what was going on. I love the world building. I can't say enough how much I love this world building. I think it gave this magical feel, this magical atmosphere to the world while still being easy to understand, and understand the dynamics between the countries, understand the culture. I guess this is it for my Shadow and Bone, the trilogy review, because I don't know what else I can tell you about the series without giving you major spoilers for the plot. And I guess it's also it for this video, so if you liked it, please can leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you to another video very soon. Bye!